guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video, we are talking impulse buys. Something that happens to the best of us. You guys know how it goes. Sometimes you're in a store, maybe you're browsing online, or you see an email come in, and suddenly you've bought something that you really didn't think through very well. Today I'm sharing with you guys some impulse buys of mine, some of which have worked out very well for me, and some... what was I thinking? But it should be a lot of fun. I have some things in here that I know you guys have probably never seen before. But before we do jump into it, I want to welcome those of you that are new visitors to my channel. Welcome. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Be sure to give it a thumbs up if you do. And of course, hit that subscribe button before you leave. With that said, let's get right into my bin of impulse buys. Alright guys, so here is my bin of impulse buys. I thought a fun way to do this would be, rather than go through these in any sort of order, just to randomly grab things out of here, and then I'll let you guys know whether it was good or bad. Let's start off with this one right here. I have with me the Blush Crush palette from ColourPop. Now this was definitely an impulse buy. I actually went into an Ulta to pick up the You Are a Cutie palette. This was sitting next to that palette in the store. I decided to go for both of them because I just thought this was so adorable and the pinks were so very me. And believe it or not, but this has become one of my more used ColourPop palettes, and I definitely like this one a lot more than I liked the You Are a Cutie palette. I do still have that palette, but I do not use that palette nearly as much as I use this one. It's a beautiful palette. These are pinks in the most flattering way. If you are someone that's very intimidated by bold pink eyeshadow, none of these look overly bold on the eyes. They're very soft, very kind of romantic looking, but very, very pretty. Good range in here from light to dark, which I always love to see in an eyeshadow palette. So this one ended up being an impulse buy that I did not regret. I'm really happy to have this palette in my collection. Next up is an eyeshadow palette from Urban Decay. This is the Kristen Leanne palette that came out, what was it, 3 or 4 years ago? This thing has been out for a very long time. This was a very early on in my YouTube channel impulse buy, which is why I wanted to include it in this video. And although I didn't feel this way initially, this is definitely going to be a regret for me now. Part of the reason for that is that the longer I've done YouTube, the more I've realized I should generally try and stay away from things that are discontinued very quickly, because this palette was discontinued very shortly after I purchased it. It is a pretty little matte palette. I do love the formula of these and they're really nice shades, but I definitely have these shades in multiple places throughout my collection. And not only that, but I feel like I can't really use this, at least on camera anymore, because you cannot buy this palette anymore. And I don't think this thing was super cheap when I bought it. It was over $20, which for 5 shades, I mean, I don't know what I was thinking. I really wasn't thinking. I just, you know how it goes. Especially back in the days when you could swatch makeup in Ulta. It's dangerous. Dangerous business. So this is definitely a regret now. Probably a palette I should pass along because I didn't use this very much. It is still in really good shape. I mean, I feel like matte shadows last for just about ever. I know a lot of people don't feel that way, but I would be comfortable still using this. I just don't use it anymore. Okay, let's go into this one right here. This is the Smashbox Spotlight palette in the color Pearl. This was a definite impulse buy. I remember going through Ulta, having no intention of buying this, and somehow this ended up coming home with me, which is not something that happens very often with high-end makeup. I'm not one to just randomly grab things that cost more than $20 and buy them, but happened with this one. Now, initially, I thought I liked this because it was one of my first higher-end highlighters. I felt kind of fancy using a Smashbox highlighter, but I've since learned that there are better highlighting formulas than this. This definitely does not feel exceptional or perform exceptionally well when it comes to highlighters that I love. I know there are drugstore highlighters that I probably like the formulas of even better than this one. And there is one shade in here, which is this lighter pink shade on the outer edge here that has a lot of glitter in it. I really don't like how this looks on my skin. It looks very chalky and glittery. These two right here are pretty. I just don't think there's anything to write home about this palette. So I'd categorize this one as an impulse buy that initially was maybe not a thumbs down for me, but now I would definitely say this is a regret for me. Not something I use very much anymore. And now that I've tried a lot more highlighters, I think there are better highlighters than this one out there, both drugstore and higher end. My next impulse buy is a product that is relatively new to me. I haven't had it for super long, and this one actually came from Amazon, believe it or not. I was on their website ordering a couple more shades of the Juicy Pink blushes, and I saw this thing in the recommended bar down below, so I threw it in my cart, and it is the Honest Beauty Cream Blush. This one is in the shade Rose Pink. You guys, I've fallen in love with this little blush. Now, when I first got it, it took me a few minutes to figure out how this best applies, and I have figured out that this applies best with the finger, which is not usually my preferred form of applying cream or liquid blushes, but this is so pretty. I was going to save this blush and feature it in my upcoming blush video, which I will still talk about this blush in there, but I wanted to talk about it today too because this is a classic example of an impulse buy that ended up working out really well for me. I absolutely love this. Now, I have heard some people rave about this. I think Allie Glines really loves these blushes. I think a few of you guys have even recommended them to me, but for whatever reason, I just never had Honest Beauty on my radar, but I'm so glad that I picked this little thing up. I absolutely love it. I am wearing it on my cheeks today. It gives you such a natural, fresh looking, soft pink glow. Whenever I wear this, I feel like I look like I should be in like a BBC period drama. Do you know what I mean? Do you ever look at those women in Downton Abbey or other period films? They have those beautiful, soft, rosy cheeks that just look so pretty but not over the top. That's exactly what this blush does for me. I'm sure that made sense to no one but myself. Let me give this a quick swatch so you guys can see what the color looks like. Swatched on my hand. Here's the swatch right here, a nice neutral pink. I feel like this would work for quite a few different skin tones. I would say anyone from medium to very fair skin could get this to work for them. Very happy that I threw this thing in my cart last minute because one that I absolutely have fallen in love with. And let's talk next about a blush that I did impulse buy and I do regret. And that would be these two right here. These are from Folklore Cosmetics. I bought these during a Black Friday sale and they were significantly discounted. As you can see, these two blushes are obviously meant to dupe or mimic the Cover FX blushes, which I have not tried. But for whatever reason, I just don't find myself reaching for these. And I think a larger reason that these are now an impulse buy is I recently checked their website. I think I talked about these in a recent blush video. It was either my blush tag video or my blush declutter. But when I went to link these, I realized that these are like $14 on the Folklore website. They were not on sale anymore, and I believe when I got these I paid like $6 for them. I would not pay $14 for these. If I was going to pay $14 for a blush, I would just get a MAC blush, maybe one of the Glow Play blushes, even though I know these are more expensive. But I'd rather put that $14 to actually buying the Cover FX blushes than getting these knockoffs when I feel like that's a little pricey. Now, I've used these enough to feel like I can say that they're not bad. I mean, there's nothing wrong with them per se. I just don't find myself reaching for them very often. They're a little bit bulky, which I know the Cover FX ones would probably be a little bulky as well. And I don't know, the colors are not really anything to write home about. I'm just not a huge fan of these. And now that I know they're $15, I would not pay $15 for these. The next two impulse buys are also blushes, and that would be the Persona Super Blushes. I don't know if these would technically classify as impulse buys, because basically what happened with these is as soon as I saw that Persona came out with these, I bought them. Persona is one of those brands that when they release new makeup products, I really trust that the things they're releasing are going to be good. I just haven't tried anything from them that wasn't exceptional. And the fact that there were only two shades, I just knew I wanted to try these. So these were kind of an impulse buy in that I didn't have to think much about whether or not I was going to buy them. And I am happy to report that I was not disappointed in these at all. I love these blushes. I always love Persona's products. I feel like they do a great job with their releases and coming out with great formulas, great colors. Let me know if you have medium to deep skin and you have tried these out, because I'm not quite sure how well these would work on deeper skin tones. I feel like they are a little brighter than they are maybe showing up on my camera, like this peach one. It has quite a bit of pigment to it, but I wouldn't necessarily call it like really bold. So if you have a very deep skin tone, I'm not sure if these will work for you, but again, if you've tried them, let us know down below. Here's the shade Carmel. This one up here was the shade Georgia. Perfect shade. You have a neutral, leaning, cool tone pink and a very nice peach. And they're that perfect kind of satiny matte formula that I just think always works so well. Big fan of these. Very happy with this impulse purchase, and I do use these quite a bit still. Alright guys, my next impulse buy, this one hurts, was the Natasha Denona Love Palette. This for me was like the definition of an impulse buy. As soon as I saw this palette released, it was her second 15-pan smaller palette, and after falling in love with the Sunrise palette, I didn't really think much about this color store. I just knew that it was Natasha Denona and I loved her last one, so I wanted this one. And I should have stopped and thought about it and really looked at the palette and done my research, because although I think it's a nice palette, I don't have any qualms with the quality of the shades inside here. They're just not very me shades. The pinks inside here, none of them are super soft, which is kind of how I like my pinks. Some of these lighter pinks might come across on camera as soft, but trust me you guys, these are quite bold, quite intense. So as someone that doesn't love super bold pink or bold purple looks, I should have known that this palette just would not get along super well with me. There are some shades that I do really love in here. I love these purples over here and the silver, you guys. Look at that silver. It is absolutely beautiful. But there's just so many pinks in here that I'm just not a huge fan of. And when I'm in the mood for a pink look, I'm much more likely to go with something along the lines of these sort of shades than very bold pinks like these. So for that, and not to mention the price on these things, they are still $65, which to me is a very pretty penny. This would have to be a regret or a bit of a disappointment for me. And again, not because the palette is not good, but because it's just not a me color story. My next impulse buy is another palette. This one is also quite colorful, but this one is an absolute thumbs up, and it is the e.l.f. Retro Paradise palette. This was a pretty big impulse buy for me. I didn't really intend to pick up this palette. I was on their website. I was planning to pick up the Brow Wow, some other brow products, as well as their little pads that go in my eyelash curler right here. And it was there on the front page, and it just happened. It ended up in my cart. I had a moment where I regretted it before the package arrived in the mail, but the very first time I tried this palette out, I fell in love with it. And I still really enjoy this palette. I have yet to reach for these three pastel colors in the palette, but I've tried everything else out, inside here, and I absolutely love it. This is such a fun palette. There's a lot of really fun and interesting neutrals in here. There's a lot of variety in this palette. Even if you take these colorful shades out, you can get quite a bit of variety in the types of neutral looks that you can create with this one, which is just very me. I like playing with a little bit of color, but I like things to lean over towards the neutral side, which you guys probably know that about me. I believe Jen Phelps did a video where she compared this palette to the Magic Mini palette, and I can definitely see some similarities, but I do think there are some really unique shades inside this palette, especially this shade right here. One of my most used lid shades over the past summer. This is the shade I'm wearing on my lid. It's kind of a gold that has a green and peach shift to it. Really, really beautiful duochrome. This gold down here is really interesting and fun. It's like a yellow gold that has a little bit more copper in it than just a traditional shiny yellow. Let me swatch that first shade for you guys as well. This is the shade Paradiso. It's the one I have on my lid right now. Oh, I love it. I don't know that the camera does it justice. A lot of fun colors in here, good neutrals, good range from light to dark, which you guys know I love and always look for. I believe I ranked this palette pretty high in my ranking the palettes I tried out in 2020 so far, so a definite win for me when it comes to impulse buys that I've had. Very happy with this one. Good quality, good colors, good price, and I do use this palette quite a bit. My next impulse buy, oh man, you guys, it would be this right here. This is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Cream Contour Palette. I'm gonna give this one a thumbs down, and I have TJ Maxx to blame for this. TJ Maxx is one of the ultimate places to go for impulse buys. Am I wrong? Sometimes you walk through their store, and especially if their makeup looks like it's in good shape, which depending on the store that you go to, that may or may not be the case. But when I was starting my YouTube channel, I didn't have a lot of high-end makeup, and I remember seeing this in TJ Maxx for like $19.99, normally $40 or $50, and I thought, wow, what a deal. How can I not get it? And I didn't really think to myself, that is still $20. When have you used a cream contour? And this was back in the day before I had ever tried out a cream bronzer. I do love cream bronzer, but these are definitely cream contours. These are very, very cool toned and quite ashy, especially when it comes to the contour shades on the bottom. And I don't know that this lighting will do it justice, but these are the type of shades that might look really nice on camera, or if you're doing like black and white photography, but in person, they are all quite ashy. Like they're really, really cool toned. I mean, these are truly gray in tone, and there's something about, I don't know. I mean, maybe if I had like a face that was a little bit more round and needed a little bit more chiseling. I mean, I have a longer face. I have kind of harsh bone structure, plus I'm a little bit older, so putting anything ashy on my face just does not do me any favors at all. I rarely go for a true contour. I'm much more of a kind of bronzer sort of lady, like a contour with a little bit of warmth to it, because I feel like that's what my face needs. Not one to go for the cool tones. And then I honestly don't even know what to do with these shades up here. This is a cream highlighter, but it's not my favorite formula. It's quite greasy. I am wearing the smallest amount of this shade in the middle, just like right here on my cheekbones. Honestly, I don't know why I still have this thing around. I think it's kind of a reminder to me. Be careful when you go into Marshall's. Don't get suckered in. Just because it's high-end and it's cheaper doesn't mean that you should buy it. Let's go with another impulse buy regret, and that would be this right here. This is the IT Cosmetics CC Airbrush Perfecting Powder. I think this is the illumination version. I don't see much illumination in here. I think I got this, and I did get this, I think about a year and a half ago in the Ulta 21 Days of Beauty. I think I got this hoping that it would be a little bit more of like a highlighting sort of powder. It's definitely not, and I don't see anything magical happening on my skin when I reach for this powder. If you guys have been watching me for a long time, you will probably know that not many powders woo me. I think part of the reason for this is, number one, I have dry skin, and I don't find putting a powder on my skin to do me a lot of favors other than a couple areas. I do put a little bit of powder on my forehead and kind of here along my smile lines just to keep things from settling there, but I'm usually pretty light-handed with it. I mean, if I can see a powder on my skin, it's a no-go for me, and if I can't see a powder on my skin, I think, well, why is this expensive powder so much better than, say, my Rimmel Stay Matte powder? That's kind of my thinking or logic when it comes to powder. It's a product that I just think is very functional for me, and because I don't use a lot of it and I don't find I need it to make my makeup prolong very much. Or maybe that's not true. I know powders can prolong the wear of your makeup, especially your foundation and concealer products, but I would rather have my makeup wear off a little bit throughout the day than have my already dry skin look even more dry. And that's kind of the line I find myself trying to walk when it comes to powder. So there are very few powders that really draw me in and really win my love, so to speak. So that's kind of my feelings on this one. Not something I find myself reaching for very often. If it's not going to completely erase my wrinkles in the way that like Botox would, then I'll just stick with my Rimmel and my RCMA powders. Down to my last two impulse buys. This one right here is a little bit more recent, and it is the Milk Highlighter in the color Flex. This I featured in a recent video, and I thought I had mixed feelings on this thing. It is now official. I'm giving this one a thumbs up. I do really love this highlighter. In the first video that I featured this, when I first used this in that video, I thought it was making my skin look a little bit gray, but what I found out is as I was editing that video, that gray was actually coming from the bronzer that I applied. I applied too much of my Hourglass bronzer, and that is a deeper, cooler tone bronzer. I do love it, but I have to be very light-handed with that one. Now that I've used this several times with various bronzers and blushes, I really, really like this. It is very, very intense. Let me go ahead and swatch it for you guys. There it is right there. So not for the faint of heart, but if you like an intense highlighter, as I sometimes do, I do really enjoy this one. I also like the smell of it. It smells really nice. It's a very soft, subtle scent, but I find when I use this, as I'm applying it, it just gives me that little waft of, smells fresh and clean. I am wearing this highlighter on my cheeks today. It is quite beaming, as you can see, but if you want to tone this down, it's very easy to tone it down just by taking your damp sponge and very lightly tapping over the top of it to really press it into your skin. It also has really good packaging. It reminds me a little bit of the Persona blush packaging. It is a little pricey if you're on a budget. You can find great highlighters for a much cheaper price than this, but I have been really enjoying this since I got it. Down to my last impulse buy, and that would be the Fenty Beauty Gloss Bombs. This is actually a mini set that I ended up picking up last holiday season. I had sort of had my eye on the Fenty glosses, but there was something inside of me that just, I couldn't bring myself to spend that much on a lip gloss. Lip gloss is one of those products that for a long time I thought, you know, you can get a good lip gloss at the drugstore for $5. Why would I pay $15 to $20 on a lip gloss? But while I was holiday shopping on Sephora's website, I ended up throwing these into my cart, and I have fallen in love with the Fenty glosses since. I have 3 of the minis, these 2 shades which I don't think are permanent, as well as the shade Fussy, which is permanent. That's probably my favorite shade. And I ended up picking up a full size in the shade Sweet Mouth because I fell in love with those. So that was an impulse buy that worked out really well for me. I do think they're actually a good value. I mean, the minis or the full sizes, I think for how much product you're getting in them, these have lasted me really well. I keep them on my desk and I reach for them quite often. So even though they're a little bit pricey, I do recommend them. I think they're worth the price. Let me go ahead and swatch the shade Sweet Mouth for you guys. It's basically a clear with a very soft pink glittery sheen to it. I mean, it's not going to give you a lot of color. The shade Fussy does have quite a bit more pink in it if you're looking for color, but I do love this gloss to pair on top of pretty much any lipstick. It just gives you that little bit of shine, little bit of sparkle, but you can't feel the glitter inside of it. It's just really comfortable, really lovely. It is very slightly sticky, but I don't mind a gloss that is a little bit sticky. I definitely wouldn't call it annoyingly sticky. So yeah, Fenty Gloss Bombs, a good impulse purchase for me. Happy I finally took the plunge and discovered these little guys. And that, you guys, is it for today's video. I hope that you guys enjoyed this one. I would love to say that this is all the makeup I have ever bought on impulse, but honestly, especially if you look at my lipstick drawer, pretty much every lipstick I've ever bought was on an impulse. I do try to avoid impulse purchases. I think it's always better to think through your makeup purchases, and I feel like I've gotten a little bit better thanks to situations like this. Plus, I feel like I know myself a little bit better as far as what my makeup preferences are. But I would love to hear from you guys down below. What is some makeup that you guys have impulse purchased? Maybe your greatest regret or your greatest surprise love. Let me know down in the comment section below. Thank you guys so much for stopping by today. I hope that you guys enjoyed this one. I hope that you are all doing well. Please do not forget to subscribe before you leave, and I will see you guys all in my next video. Bye.